Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Cognitive Curves. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects so many of us: the fear of confrontation. I'm your host, and joining me is my co host, who brings a wealth of insight and curiosity to the table. We're going to explore the roots, symptoms, and solutions to this often debilitating fear. So, buckle up and let's get started.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. The fear of confrontation is something I think a lot of us can relate to. Can you start by giving us a quick overview of what it is and why it's important to understand?
Absolutely. The fear of confrontation is a deep-seated anxiety that can manifest in many ways. Physically, it might show up as sweating, increased heart rate, or even nausea. Psychologically, it can lead to overthinking and worst-case scenarios. Behaviorally, it often results in people-pleasing and avoiding honesty. Understanding this fear is crucial because it can significantly impact our relationships and overall well-being. It's like carrying a heavy backpack that we don't even realize is there until we start to explore it.
That makes a lot of sense. So where do these fears come from? I've heard that early childhood experiences play a big role.
Absolutely. Early childhood experiences are a significant factor. Dr. John Bowlby's attachment theory is a great place to start. Children who experience inconsistent or critical parenting can develop anxious or avoidant attachment styles. Dr. Kimberly R. Finch's research further links these childhood experiences to adult conflict avoidance. For example, if a child is repeatedly criticized for expressing their needs, they might grow up believing that confrontation is dangerous or that their needs don't matter.
That's really interesting. So it's like the environment we grew up in sets the stage for how we handle conflict later in life. What are some of the symptoms people might experience when they're afraid of confrontation?
Exactly. The symptoms can be quite varied. Physically, people might experience sweating, a racing heart, or even nausea. Psychologically, there's often anticipatory anxiety, feeling dread before a confrontation even happens. People might overthink situations, imagining the worst-case scenarios. Behaviorally, they might resort to people-pleasing to avoid conflict, or they might become passive-aggressive because they're not comfortable expressing their true feelings. Dr. Thomas J. Harbin's research highlights how these symptoms can create a cycle of avoidance and resentment.
Um, that sounds really tough. So what can people do to overcome this fear? Are there any therapeutic solutions that have been found to be effective?
There are several effective therapeutic approaches. One is EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, developed by Dr. Francine Shapiro. EMDR helps reprocess negative memories, which can be incredibly powerful for those whose fear of confrontation is rooted in childhood trauma. Another approach is internal family systems, IFS, developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz. IFS involves working with internal parts to understand and address fear of confrontation. And then there's Somatic Therapy, based on Dr. Peter Levine's work, which focuses on releasing physical tension stored in the body from traumatic experiences.
Wow, those sound like really holistic approaches. How does the role of parenting come into play in developing confrontation anxiety?
Parenting plays a crucial role. Emotionally dismissive or critical parenting can lead to the development of an inner critic, which can make it very difficult for a child to express themselves later in life. Dr. Gabor Maté's insights are particularly valuable here. He explains how a child might adapt their behavior to avoid conflict, leading to a pattern of suppressing their true feelings. This inner critic can become a significant barrier to healthy communication in adulthood.
That's really eye-opening. So how can mindfulness and self-compassion help in managing this fear?
Mindfulness is a powerful practice for observing triggers and managing emotional responses. Dr. Kristin Neff's work on self-compassion is also incredibly relevant. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend. By reducing self-criticism, you can start to break down the barriers that keep you from confronting situations healthily. It's like learning to be your own best friend in the face of anxiety.
That's beautiful. So, what are some practical daily strategies people can use to manage their fear of confrontation?
There are a few key strategies. Gradual exposure is one of the most effective. Start by facing minor conflicts to build resilience. Assertiveness training is another powerful tool. It involves learning how to express yourself respectfully and build self confidence. These strategies can help you develop the skills and confidence to handle more challenging situations over time.
That sounds really actionable. Can you share a real world case study to illustrate how these strategies have worked for someone?
Certainly. Let's take the example of Sarah, who struggled with fear of confrontation at work. She started by practicing assertiveness in low stakes situations, like asking for minor changes in her schedule. Gradually, she built up her confidence and was able to address more significant issues, such as a colleague who consistently undermined her in meetings. Over time, she not only improved her work relationships, but also felt more empowered in her personal life. It's a journey, but the results can be transformative.
That's really inspiring. So, what's the final takeaway for our listeners? What do you want them to take away from this episode?
The key takeaway is that overcoming the fear of confrontation is a journey, but it's a journey worth taking. By understanding the roots of your fear, recognizing the symptoms, and applying the right strategies, you can start to break free from the patterns that have held you back. Remember, it's about building resilience and confidence one step at a time. And don't forget to subscribe to Cognitive Curves for more insights and self empowerment tools.
Thank you so much for this incredible discussion. I'm sure our listeners are feeling more informed and empowered. Until next time, stay curious and keep growing.